A waitress whispered in the millionaire's ear. "Don't get in the car. Your wife wants to kill you." The next morning, there were 3 men in black suits near her house. The dim glow of the city bathed the high-rise buildings of New York, the skyline painted in shades of gold and navy blue. From the floor-to-ceiling windows of an exclusive penthouse, Elizabeth Parker admired the view, a glass of red wine in her hand. Everything about her exuded power, her sharp cheekbones, the perfectly tailored dress, the way she held herself with effortless elegance. But beneath the surface, behind that poised smile, lurked a mind calculating its next move. Across from her, Philip Turner swirled his own drink, the amber liquid catching the chandelier's glow. He had been Matthew Parker's business partner for over a decade, a man once bound by loyalty, but now entangled in ambition. And tonight, ambition had turned into something far darker. Elizabeth's lips curled into a smirk as she leaned in slightly. "It needs to happen tonight," she said, in a voice as smooth as silk. Philip raised an eyebrow, amusement flickering in his gaze. "You sure you can handle this, Liz? This is your husband we're talking about." She laughed, light and careless, as if discussing something as trivial as a dinner reservation. "That's exactly why it has to be tonight. He trusts me. He won't see it coming." Philip sighed, leaning back against the plush leather couch. "And when he's out of the picture?" Elizabeth took a slow sip of her wine before answering. "We move forward. His shares, his fortune, his empire, it will all be under my control. And you?" She paused, letting the implication linger. "You'll get your cut, just as we agreed." Philip nodded, though a flicker of doubt crossed his features. It wasn't that he had any moral objections. He had long since buried those. But killing Matthew Parker wasn't just about getting rid of an obstacle. It was about stepping into a storm, one that could easily turn on them if something went wrong. Still, greed had its way of silencing doubt. "All right," Philip said, finishing his drink in one gulp. "Let's make this happen." A few blocks away, Matthew Parker adjusted the cufflinks on his tailored suit as he stepped into the dimly lit restaurant, his usual table already set for him. He was a man who appreciated routine, who thrived on control. His presence commanded attention, salt and pepper hair perfectly styled, an air of quiet authority surrounding him. "Mr. Parker," the maitre d' greeted him with a respectful nod. "Your table is ready." Matthew gave a polite nod in return and took his seat, reaching for the menu though he already knew what he'd order. The routine was comforting, predictable. He had no idea that tonight. Predictability was an illusion. A few tables away, Lily Montgomery moved swiftly between guests, balancing a tray with practiced ease. Working at one of the most prestigious restaurants in New York wasn't easy, but she had learned how to blend in, how to navigate the controlled chaos with precision. She had no time for distractions. Her mother's medical bills were piling up, and her younger sister needed school supplies. Every dollar counted. But then she saw something that made her stop. At a secluded booth, a striking woman with golden hair sat across from a sharply dressed man. Lily didn't recognize them, but their conversation was impossible to ignore. "You're sure he won't change his plans?" the man asked. "Of course not," the woman replied smoothly. "Matthew is a creature of habit. After dinner, he'll get into his car, like always." She smirked, tapping her manicured fingers against the table. "And then, accident, pity, really?" Lily's heart pounded. They were planning to kill someone. A chill ran down her spine. She could walk away, pretend she hadn't heard anything, but then a memory struck her. Her father's face, the way he had left one morning and never come back. The police called it an accident, but her mother had always believed otherwise. "Men like him don't just disappear," she had said. And now, sitting just a few feet away, was another plot, another man being led to his death. Lily swallowed hard, gripping the tray in her hands. What could she do? This wasn't a movie. She wasn't a spy. She was just a waitress trying to keep her family afloat. But she couldn't just do nothing. She took a deep breath, wiped her hands on her apron, and forced herself to walk toward Matthew's table. He barely glanced up as she placed the glass of water in front of him. "Sir," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Matthew furrowed his brow and looked up, meeting her eyes for the first time. There was urgency there, fear. "Excuse me," he said, lowering the menu. Lily swallowed. "Don't get in your car tonight." Matthew blinked, clearly taken aback. "What?" Lily's hands trembled slightly as she leaned in closer, whispering the words that changed everything. "Your wife wants you dead." For a moment, silence stretched between them. Matthew studied her, his sharp mind assessing the situation. Was this some kind of sick joke? A setup? But the way her eyes darted nervously to the table where Elizabeth sat told him otherwise. Slowly, he turned his head, following her gaze. Elizabeth was smiling, sipping her wine, utterly unaware that her plan had just been shattered. Matthew's stomach tightened. This wasn't paranoia. This wasn't a mistake. His wife wanted him dead, and now, he had to decide what to do about it. Matthew Parker sat frozen in his chair, his mind struggling to process the words that had just left the waitress's lips. His wife wanted him dead. The absurdity of it made him almost laugh, but the fear in the young woman's eyes told him she wasn't joking. Lily Montgomery kept her hands tightly clasped around the edge of her tray, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't planned on this, hadn't planned on getting involved. But now there was no going back. She had warned him. She had put herself in the middle of something dangerous, and if she wasn't careful, she could be the next one on the chopping block. Matthew's fingers tightened around his glass. His instincts told him to dismiss it, to call it a misunderstanding. But there was something about this woman, about the urgency in her voice, the way her hands trembled just slightly, that made him pause. He glanced toward Elizabeth. She was still at her table, elegantly sipping her wine, laughing at something Philip had said to anyone else. She looked like the picture of sophistication, but Matthew knew her better than anyone. He had spent years studying every movement, every glance, every carefully measured smile, and suddenly, he realized that he had never truly known her at all. His pulse quickened. Lily leaned in again, her voice even lower this time. "I heard them talking, your wife and that man. They said the accident had to happen tonight." She hesitated, as if gathering her courage. "If you get in your car, you won't make it home." Matthew exhaled slowly, forcing himself to stay calm. If this was true, if Elizabeth really was plotting against him, then he couldn't let her suspect that he knew. "Not yet." He met Lily's eyes. "Are you sure about this?" Her throat tightened, but she nodded. 100%. His gaze drifted back to Elizabeth, to the way she twirled her wine glass absent-mindedly, as if tonight were just another ordinary night. How long had she been planning this? How long had he been sleeping beside a woman who wanted him dead? Lily took a step back. "I should go before they see me talking to you." Matthew caught her wrist before she could leave. It was a reflex, pure instinct. "Why are you telling me this?" Lily hesitated, her breath catching slightly. "Because someone did this to my father." The words were barely a whisper, and no one warned him. Something in her voice made Matthew's chest tighten. She wasn't doing this for money or for attention. She was doing it because she knew what it was like to lose someone. He released her wrist. She turned, slipping away into the crowd of servers and guests before Elizabeth or Philip could notice. Matthew sat back, his mind racing. He needed to act carefully. If he suddenly changed his routine, Elizabeth would suspect something was wrong. He needed time to figure out his next move, to understand just how deep this betrayal went. For now, he would play along. He picked up his menu again, pretending to read it, even as his heart pounded violently in his chest. Across the room, Elizabeth glanced in his direction, her smile never faltering. Matthew forced himself to smile back. Lily's shift dragged on longer than usual, every second stretching endlessly as she forced herself to keep working as if nothing had happened. She avoided looking at Matthew, avoided looking at Elizabeth. If she let her fear show, she was as good as dead. The moment her shift ended, she grabbed her bag and rushed outside into the cold night air. The streets of New York were still alive with traffic, headlights streaking past in long, bright lines. She pulled her coat tighter around herself and quickened her pace. She needed to go home, needed to pretend that tonight had never happened. But deep down, she knew that was impossible. She had changed something. She had disrupted a plan that wasn't meant to be disrupted, and people like Elizabeth Parker didn't forgive mistakes. A chill ran down her spine. Her house wasn't far, a small, worn-down place on the edge of the city where she lived with her mother and younger sister. It wasn't much, but it was home. She turned the last corner and stopped. 3 men stood near her building, dressed in dark suits, their eyes scanning the street. Lily's stomach twisted. She knew what this was. They were looking for her. Matthew took his time finishing his meal, careful not to make any sudden changes to his usual routine. He forced himself to act normal, to laugh at the waiter's small talk, to sip his wine without choking on the anger bubbling beneath his skin. But his mind was elsewhere. He checked his watch. By now, his driver should be waiting for him outside, and if he had listened to Elizabeth, he would have walked straight into his own death. Instead, he casually pulled out his phone and sent a single message to his security team. Change of plans. Send another car, make sure no one follows. He paid his bill, nodded to the staff, and walked outside. His usual driver was there, standing by the sleek black sedan that had taken him home 100 times before. Matthew paused. The driver smiled politely, just as he always did. But something was wrong. Matthew had been in business long enough to recognize a setup when he saw one. The feeling in his gut, the same instinct that had made him listen to Lily, told him that if he got into that car, he wouldn't make it out alive. He turned, pulling out his phone again. Find out who hired my driver tonight. Then, without looking back, he walked the opposite direction, blending into the crowd. Behind him, the driver hesitated before pulling out his own phone. Dialing a number, a cold voice answered. He didn't get in the car. Silence then. Follow him. Matthew's jaw tightened. He had been right, and now, the real game had begun. Lily's breath caught in her throat as she pressed herself against the side of a building, heart hammering against her ribs. The three men standing near her house weren't ordinary passers-by. Their sharp suits, and the way they scanned the street like hawks told her exactly what they were. They were looking for her. Panic clawed at her chest. She had seen this before. The same quiet tension, the same careful, deliberate movements. The men who had come for her father had looked just like this, faceless, emotionless, efficient. She took a slow step back, trying not to draw attention, but the moment her foot scuffed against the pavement, one of them turned his head. Their eyes met. Lily didn't wait. She bolted. Her feet pounded against the cold concrete weaving through the darkened streets of New York. The city was still alive around her, horns blaring, laughter spilling from bars, the occasional siren wailing in the distance. But in that moment, it felt like she was completely alone. She could hear footsteps behind her, fast and controlled. They weren't running yet, but they were following. Think, Lily, think. She knew these streets better than anyone. Knew the alleys, the shortcuts, the places where she could disappear. Her heart slammed against her ribs as she ducked into a narrow alley between two buildings. She ran past overflowing dumpsters, the pungent smell of garbage burning her nose, before spotting a metal fire escape ladder just within reach. Grabbing the cold metal, she pulled herself up, her arms burning as she climbed. The second she reached the second floor, she flattened herself against the brick wall. Pressing into the shadows, seconds later, the men entered the alley. Lily held her breath. She couldn't have gone far. One of them muttered, "Keep looking. The boss doesn't like loose ends." Her stomach twisted. A few agonizing minutes passed before they finally moved on. Only when their footsteps faded did Lily dare to exhale. She needed to get out of here, and she needed help. Matthew Parker sat in the back of a different car now, his expression unreadable as he stared at the city lights flickering outside the tinted windows. The fact that he had almost walked into his own death still made his stomach turn. But what unsettled him even more was the ease with which Elizabeth had planned it. She hadn't hesitated, hadn't struggled with the decision. She had smiled at him over breakfast that morning, kissed his cheek, and then planned his murder that very night. He clenched his jaw. The worst part was that she had almost won. He had built an empire from nothing, survived cutthroat business deals, outmaneuvered powerful rivals. But he had let his own wife fool him, not anymore. His phone buzzed in his hand. He glanced down. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Hello?" A shaky breath, then, "Matthew, it's me." His spine stiffened. He knew that voice, the waitress. "Lily." She let out a ragged breath. "I need help." Lily could still hear her pulse in her ears as she ducked into an empty parking garage, her phone clutched tightly in her trembling hand. She had debated calling the police, but something told her it wouldn't matter. People like Elizabeth had money, influence. If they wanted to make someone disappear, they could. But Matthew Parker wasn't just anyone. She had saved his life tonight. Now, she needed him to save hers. Matthew's voice was calm, controlled. "Where are you?" I don't know exactly," she admitted, scanning her surroundings. "A parking garage near 32nd Street. I think they followed me home." She swallowed hard, trying to steady herself. "They're looking for me." Silence. Then, "Stay where you are. I'm coming." Matthew wasn't entirely sure what made him act so quickly. He had spent his life making calculated decisions, weighing risks before taking action. But there was no hesitation now. The second the call ended, he turned to his driver. 32nd Street now. The car accelerated, weaving through traffic with the kind of urgency Matthew usually reserved for high-stakes business deals. But this wasn't business. This was survival. His mind raced. Elizabeth had clearly figured out that someone had warned him. And if Lily had been followed home, it meant she was in danger because of him. His fingers tightened around his phone. He wouldn't let them touch her. Lily had never been so aware of her own breathing. She kept herself hidden behind a concrete pillar, eyes flicking toward the garage entrance every few seconds. She had no idea if the men were still close. Her phone buzzed again. "Matthew, I'm here." Lily peeked around the corner, and there it was. A sleek black car pulling into the garage, headlights slicing through the darkness. She didn't hesitate. She sprinted toward it, yanking open the door and throwing herself inside. The second the door slammed shut, the car peeled out of the garage. Matthew glanced at her. She was pale, breathless, eyes wide with fear. "They were waiting for me," she said, voice shaking. "At my house." His jaw tightened. This wasn't just about getting rid of him anymore. Elizabeth was tying up loose ends. "You're safe now," he said firmly, though he wasn't sure how true that was. Lily swallowed hard, nodding. She didn't know where they were going. She didn't know what came next. All she knew was that, for now, she was still alive, and that had to count for something. Lily pressed her back against the leather seat, her breath still uneven, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to process everything. The dim glow from the dashboard cast flickering shadows across Matthew's sharp, composed face. He looked calm, too calm, but she could see the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers drummed restlessly against the armrest. She had seen that kind of tension before. It wasn't fear, it was calculation. Matthew Parker was a man used to being in control, but tonight, control had been stripped from him, and she could tell he hated it. "Are you hurt?" His voice was steady, but there was something else there, something almost protective. Lily shook her head, hugging her arms. "No, just..." She exhaled, still trying to steady herself. "I didn't know what else to do." Matthew nodded, glancing at her for a brief moment, before returning his focus to the road ahead. "You did the right thing." Lily let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, doesn't feel like it." Silence filled the car, the weight of the situation pressing down on both of them. She looked at him again, studying the sharp lines of his face. He didn't look like a man who had just survived an assassination attempt. He looked like someone planning his next move. "What are you going to do?" she finally asked. Matthew exhaled through his nose, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. "First, I need to make sure you're safe. Then, I find out exactly how deep this goes." Lily swallowed hard. "It goes deep. I heard them." Matthew's eyes flicked to her, curiosity sparking beneath the surface. "What exactly did you hear?" She hesitated. She hadn't had time to fully process it earlier. But now, thinking back to Elizabeth's words, the implications hit her harder. "It wasn't just about you," she said, voice low. "They weren't just trying to get rid of you. They were talking about what happens next. Like this was just step one." Matthew's grip on the wheel turned his knuckles white. He exhaled slowly, controlling his reaction, but Lily could see the muscle in his jaw twitch. "They want the company," he muttered. Lily nodded, "and everything else that comes with it." Matthew tapped his fingers against the wheel, deep in thought. Philip and Elizabeth wouldn't be able to do this alone. "If they're making a move this bold, they have help." Lily shivered. "Help like the guys who were waiting for me outside my house." Matthew's gaze darkened. "Exactly," she exhaled, rubbing her arms as if trying to chase away the lingering cold. "Where are we going?" "For now, somewhere they won't find you." Lily frowned. "And what about you?" Matthew smirked slightly, though there was no humor in it. "They'll find me, that's the point." Her stomach twisted. "You're going to let them come after you." He glanced at her again, the flicker of amusement gone. "They already are." The weight of his words settled over her. And for the first time that night, the reality of it truly hit her. Matthew Parker wasn't just a rich man who had been targeted by a greedy wife. He was someone in the middle of a high-stakes game. A game where people didn't just lose money. They lost their lives. Lily suddenly felt very small. "Why are you helping me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Matthew didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled the car into the underground parking garage of an upscale apartment building. The moment the engine shut off, he turned to her fully, his eyes sharp, assessing, "Because you saved my life," he said simply. "And because if Elizabeth sent men after you, she won't stop until you're dead." Lily swallowed. She had known that deep down, but hearing it out loud made it feel real in a way she wasn't prepared for. She looked at the building. "Where are we?" "A safe house," Matthew said, pushing open his door. Lily hesitated before following him out. The elevator ride up was silent. Tense, when the doors finally opened, she stepped into what could only be described as a high-security penthouse. It was sleek, modern, and, if she had to guess, probably cost more money than she would see in her lifetime. Matthew walked ahead, tossing his keys onto a marble counter. "You'll be safe here." Lily crossed her arms. "And you?" Matthew turned to face her fully, his expression unreadable. "I have work to do." She narrowed her eyes. "You're going after them, aren't you?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached for a bottle of whiskey, pouring himself a drink. "They made one mistake," he said, swirling the liquid in the glass. Lily tilted her head. "What's that?" He looked at her, something dangerous flickering in his eyes. "They didn't finish the job." Lily let out a shaky breath. "Matthew?" He downed the whiskey in one gulp. "Get some rest, Lily. You're safe here." She wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that no one was safe. Not really, but she could see the determination in his eyes, the fire burning beneath his calm exterior. So instead, she nodded, turning toward the guest room. But as she reached the doorway, she hesitated. "Be careful," she said softly. Matthew didn't turn around, but for the first time that night, something in his expression shifted. Maybe he had been alone for too long, or maybe, just maybe, the girl who had saved his life was about to change it in ways he never expected. The city stretched far beyond the penthouse windows, the lights of Manhattan twinkling against the night sky like a sea of fireflies. But inside, the air was still, thick with an unspoken tension. Matthew Parker stood in front of the bar, pouring himself another drink. The rich amber liquid swirled in the glass, but he barely noticed. His mind was elsewhere, racing, calculating, trying to piece together how deep the betrayal ran. His wife wanted him dead. His business partner, someone he had trusted for years, was in on it. And now, they were tying up loose ends. He had no doubt that Lily was one of those loose ends. His jaw clenched as he replayed everything she had told him. The conversation she overheard at the restaurant. The men waiting for her outside her house. The way she had run for her life. If she hadn't warned him, he would be dead right now. He set the glass down and pulled out his phone. A single text to his security team. Find out everything on Elizabeth and Philip, every bank transaction, every move they've made in the last 6 months. I want to know who else is involved. He sent another message to his personal investigator. Look into the girl Lily Montgomery. I need to know who she really is. Matthew trusted her, but trust wasn't enough. He had learned the hard way that people could surprise you, and right now, he couldn't afford surprises. Lily sat on the edge of the guest bed, staring at the plush carpet beneath her feet. Her body was exhausted, but her mind refused to shut down. This was the kind of night that changed everything. She thought about her mother, about her little sister back home. They were expecting her to come back, to walk through the door like every other night. But tonight wasn't like every other night. She had stepped into something far bigger than herself, and now, she had no idea how to get out. She glanced at the door. The penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. Lily hesitated before standing up, creeping toward the hallway. She didn't know what she was looking for, maybe just reassurance that she wasn't alone in this. She found Matthew still in the living room, standing near the window, his posture rigid. He didn't turn when he spoke. "Can't sleep." Lily folded her arms. "Not really." Matthew finally glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Your family, do they know you're okay?" She shook her head. "I didn't have time to call." Matthew exhaled and handed her his phone. "Call them." Lily hesitated, then took the phone and stepped away. Her fingers trembled as she dialed, her stomach twisting when she heard her mother's voice. "Lily, sweetheart, where are you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom," she said quickly, trying to sound normal. "Just, work ran late. I'm staying at a friend's place tonight." A beat of silence. Then, "You sure you're okay?" Lily swallowed. "Yeah, I promise." She hung up quickly, afraid that if she spoke another word, her mother would hear the lie in her voice. She turned back to Matthew, handing him the phone. "Thank you." He nodded, but didn't say anything. For a moment, neither of them did. Then Lily exhaled, rubbing her arms as if to ward off the chill that wasn't really there. "You're going to fight back, aren't you?" Matthew smirked slightly, but there was no amusement in it. "I don't lose, Lily." She tilted her head. "And what if they come after you again?" He met her gaze, eyes sharp as steel. Then they'd better not miss. A shiver ran down her spine. She had met plenty of powerful men in her life, businessmen who strutted around like kings, thinking money made them invincible. But Matthew was different. He wasn't just powerful, he was dangerous. And for the first time, she wasn't sure if she was safer with him, or in even more trouble than before. By the time Matthew's investigator got back to him, the city was already slipping into early morning. He answered on the first ring. "What do you have?" A pause. Then, "Matthew, you might want to sit down for this." His grip tightened around the phone. "Just tell me." There was a sigh on the other end. "Lily Montgomery, 24 years old, works as a waitress, supporting her mother and younger sister. But here's where it gets interesting." Matthew's stomach tightened. Her mother, Eleanor Montgomery. She wasn't always Eleanor Montgomery. Matthew frowned. "What do you mean?" "She used to go by another name. Eleanor Dawson." Matthew's breath caught in his throat. Dawson. A name from his past. A name he hadn't thought about in years. His fingers curled around the phone as his heart pounded in his chest. "That's not possible." "I double-checked," the investigator continued. "Eleanor Dawson. You knew her, Matthew, a long time ago." The room felt suddenly smaller, the air too thick. Eleanor Dawson. She had been his first love, the one his family had forced him to walk away from. And if this was true, if Lily was her daughter, then Lily Montgomery wasn't just the girl who had saved his life. She was his daughter. Matthew inhaled sharply, his mind spinning. He had a million questions, but only one truly mattered right now. Did Eleanor know? Had she kept this from him on purpose? And if so, why? He ran a hand through his hair, forcing himself to stay calm. One thing was clear. This changed everything. He looked toward the hallway, where Lily had disappeared into the guest room hours ago, unaware of the truth that had just unraveled. She had saved his life, and she had no idea that. In doing so, she had just stepped back into the life of the man who was her father. Matthew exhaled slowly, his grip tightening around the phone. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about family, and he wasn't going to lose her again. The first rays of sunlight peeked through the city skyline, casting a golden hue over the penthouse. But inside, Matthew Parker felt nothing but cold. The revelation from his investigator had settled in his chest like a stone, heavy and impossible to ignore. Lily Montgomery was his daughter. He exhaled slowly, gripping the edge of the marble counter as his mind raced through the past. Eleanor Dawson. It had been more than 2 decades, but hearing that name again had sent him spiraling back to a time when he wasn't the calculating businessman he was now. He had been young, reckless, and in love with a woman his family never approved of. Eleanor had disappeared after they broke things off. Or rather, after his parents forced him to walk away. He had tried to find her once, long ago, but his father had made it clear. She was gone, and she was never coming back. But she had, and she had kept a secret that changed everything. Matthew ran a hand over his face, trying to process the weight of it all. The woman who had saved his life wasn't just some stranger with a good heart. She was his blood, his daughter, and she had no idea. He turned his gaze toward the hallway where she slept, oblivious to the storm he was about to bring into her life. Lily woke up feeling disoriented, her body aching from exhaustion. The events of the previous night rushed back to her in an instant. The warning, the chase, the strange safety of Matthew Parker's world. She wasn't supposed to be here. She rubbed her face and pushed back the covers. Standing up slowly, the penthouse was eerily quiet as she stepped out of the guest room, the smell of coffee drifting through the air. Matthew stood by the window, a cup in his hand, staring out at the city. There was something different about him today. He looked tense. Lily hesitated before clearing her throat. "Hey," he turned, his expression unreadable. "Morning." She shifted on her feet. "So, what happens now?" Matthew set his cup down, studying her for a long moment before answering. "Now, I find out exactly how much danger we're in." Lily frowned. "We?" His jaw tightened. "Elizabeth won't stop, Lily. And now that you're involved, that means you're a target too." Her stomach twisted. She had known that last night, but hearing it confirmed made it worse. "Okay," she said slowly, wrapping her arms around herself. "Then what's the plan?" Matthew hesitated. He had planned to keep this a secret for now, to protect her from the truth until he had a better understanding of everything. But looking at her now, he realized she had been through enough lies for one lifetime. She deserved the truth, even if it destroyed everything. He exhaled, his voice quieter this time. "I need to tell you something." Lily's brows pulled together at his sudden shift in tone. "Okay." Matthew's gaze didn't waver. "It's about your mother." Lily's breath caught. "What about her?" He swallowed, choosing his words carefully. "Eleanor Dawson. That was her real name, wasn't it?" Lily stiffened. "How do you know that?" Matthew hesitated, his next words slow, deliberate. "Because I knew her." The air in the room changed. Lily's eyes widened slightly, her fingers curling against her arms. "What do you mean you knew her?" Matthew exhaled. "A long time ago, before she was Eleanor Montgomery. She was Eleanor Dawson and we were together." Lily stared at him, her heartbeat suddenly too loud in her ears. She took a step back. "Wait, you..." She shook her head, confusion clouding her thoughts. "You knew my mother. When?" Matthew's voice was calm, but there was something raw beneath the surface. "Before you were born." The words hit her like a truck. Lily felt like the ground beneath her had just cracked open. "No," she whispered. "That doesn't make sense." Matthew didn't move. "I know it's a lot, but..." "A lot." Her voice rose, panic creeping in. "You're telling me that you dated my mother and what are you trying to say?" He hesitated. Lily took another step back, shaking her head as realization set in. "Oh my God." She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. "Are you saying you're..." Matthew's jaw clenched, his next words shattering the last bit of stability she had left. "I'm your father, Lily." The silence that followed was deafening. Lily felt like she had been punched in the stomach. Her father, the man she had never known. The man her mother never spoke about. The piece of her past that had always been missing. It was him. Her breath came in shallow gasps. "No," she muttered, backing away. This isn't possible." Matthew took a step forward. "Lily, don't." Her vision blurred. Everything was spinning. She had spent her whole life wondering why her father had never been there. And now, he was standing right in front of her. The man she had risked everything to save. The man whose life she had thrown herself into protecting. It felt like a cruel joke. "You're lying," she whispered, shaking her head. "This isn't real." Matthew's expression was unreadable. "I had no idea." "Lily, I didn't know your mother was pregnant. If I had..." He exhaled sharply. "I would have been there." Lily's chest ached. "You left her," she said, her voice cracking. Matthew flinched, his eyes darkening. "No, I was forced to." Lily let out a bitter laugh. "Right, because rich men like you always have an excuse." He took another step forward, his voice softer this time. "I know you don't have a reason to believe me, but I'm telling you the truth." Lily's breathing was uneven, her head pounding with too many emotions at once. This changed everything. She had gone from being a girl trying to survive to being the daughter of a millionaire, a daughter he hadn't even known existed. She swallowed hard, stepping back again. I need to think, she muttered, turning toward the door. Lily. She didn't stop. She grabbed her coat and walked out, slamming the door behind her. Matthew exhaled, running a hand through his hair. He had known it wouldn't be easy, but watching his daughter walk away from him, again, was more painful than he expected, and this time, he wasn't going to let it happen. Lily walked blindly through the streets of Manhattan, her thoughts a tangled mess of emotions. The city around her buzzed with life, people rushing to work, yellow cabs honking impatiently, the aroma of fresh coffee drifting from corner cafes. But she felt completely disconnected from it all. Her entire life had just been flipped upside down. Matthew Parker was her father. It wasn't just a theory, not some distant possibility. He had looked her in the eyes and told her with certainty. And the worst part, she didn't know whether to believe him. Her mother had never spoken about her father. Whenever Lily asked, Eleanor's face would tighten, and she'd say the same thing. Some people aren't meant to stay. Lily had spent years filling in the blanks herself. She had imagined all kinds of scenarios. Maybe he was dead. Maybe he had abandoned them. Maybe he had never even known she existed. But she had never, not once, considered that her father could be someone like Matthew Parker, a powerful billionaire, a man who had everything. And yet, she had saved his life before either of them had known the truth. Fate had a cruel sense of humor. She stopped walking when she realized she had no idea where she was going. Her hands were still shaking. She needed air, space, something to stop the chaos inside her head. But deep down, she knew she needed answers. Matthew sat in his penthouse, staring at the empty glass in his hand. The space around him was silent. But inside, his mind was anything but. He had never expected to find himself in this situation. The possibility of fatherhood had never been something he entertained. His marriage to Elizabeth had been built on power, not love, and they had never wanted children. But now, out of nowhere, he had a daughter, and she hated him. Not that he blamed her. He had spent the last 24 hours focused on Elizabeth's betrayal, on the conspiracy to take him down. But now, there was something else weighing on him, something he never could have prepared for. Lily, a knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. His security chief, Daniel Hayes, stepped inside, his expression as serious as ever. "We looked into Eleanor Montgomery," Daniel said without preamble. "Everything checks out. She lived under the name Eleanor Dawson until about 23 years ago. That's when she legally changed her last name. Moved to upstate New York, had a daughter, no marriage records, no known father listed on the birth certificate." Matthew exhaled. It was exactly what he had expected. "That's not all," Daniel continued, placing a folder on the counter. "We also ran a preliminary test." Matthew's eyes snapped up. "Already?" Daniel nodded. "We had a glass she used last night. Compared it to yours. It's not official yet, but..." He hesitated, then exhaled. "There's a high probability of a paternal match." Matthew felt something shift in his chest. A confirmation, a weight and a responsibility that suddenly felt very real. She was his. His throat tightened as he reached for the folder, flipping it open. The words were right there in black and white. Lily Montgomery was his daughter. It should have brought him relief. Instead, it brought something much heavier. Regret. All those years, all the moments he had missed. Her first steps, her first words, her childhood. He had lost time that he would never get back. And the worst part, she had grown up believing he didn't exist. He clenched his jaw, shutting the folder. "I need to talk to her." Daniel hesitated. "She left in a hurry, but we have a trace on her phone. She's nearby." Matthew didn't like the idea of tracking her, but right now, he needed to fix this. "I'll find her myself," he said, grabbing his coat. Lily sat on a park bench, staring at the people passing by. She was in Bryant Park, a place she had always come to clear her head. She should have gone home, back to her mother, back to the safety of the familiar. But how could she face Eleanor now, knowing she had kept this secret? A presence at her side made her stiffen. "I figured I'd find you here," Matthew said, his voice calm but firm. She didn't look at him. "You tracked my phone," he exhaled. "I guessed," she scoffed, shaking her head. "Right." Silence stretched between them. "You're angry," Matthew said after a moment. Lily turned to him, her eyes flashing. "You think..." Matthew met her gaze. "I don't blame you." She let out a bitter laugh. "Good to know." More silence. Then softer, Matthew said, "I did a DNA test." Lily's breath hitched. She turned away, staring at the ground. "And? You already know the answer." Lily swallowed hard, her fingers gripping the edge of the bench. "You really didn't know?" His jaw tightened. "No." She studied his face, searching for a lie, but found none. "Why did she keep it from you?" she asked, her voice quieter now. Matthew exhaled. "I don't know, but I intend to find out." Lily nodded slowly, processing. Part of her wanted to stay angry, to push him away, but another part, the part that had always wondered about the father she never had, felt something else, a pull, a possibility. She wasn't ready to forgive, but maybe, just maybe, she was ready to listen. She turned to him again, her voice steadier this time. "What now?" Matthew held her gaze, his expression unreadable. "Now," he said, "we find out the truth." And for the first time since this nightmare started, Lily felt like she wasn't facing it alone. The car moved smoothly through the Manhattan streets, but inside, the air was thick with unspoken tension. Lily sat in the passenger seat, her arms crossed tightly over her chest, while Matthew drove with a controlled focus, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Neither of them had spoken since they left the park. Lily still wasn't sure why she had agreed to get into the car with him. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was exhaustion, or maybe, deep down, she wanted to believe him. But belief wasn't easy when you had spent your whole life thinking someone never wanted you. She exhaled sharply, breaking the silence. "So, what exactly are we doing?" Matthew didn't take his eyes off the road. "We're going to your mother's place." Lily's stomach twisted. "You think she's just going to open the door and tell you the truth?" Matthew's jaw tightened. "I think she owes me that much." Lily let out a dry laugh. "Yeah. Well, she also spent my entire life pretending you didn't exist, so I wouldn't count on it." Matthew didn't answer. Instead, he took a sharp turn, merging onto a quieter road. Lily glanced out the window, realizing they weren't heading toward her apartment. "Where are we going?" she asked. Matthew hesitated. "Your mother isn't at home." Lily frowned. "How do you know that?" He exhaled. "Because I had someone keeping an eye on her." Lily turned to him, disbelief flashing in her eyes. "You had her followed." Matthew kept his tone level. "I needed to know if she was in danger." Lily shook her head, frustration bubbling up. "Unbelievable. You don't even know her, and you're already controlling her life." "It's not about control, Lily. It's about protecting the people who matter." She let out a bitter laugh. "Right, because you've done such a great job at that so far." Matthew clenched his jaw but didn't respond. Instead, he slowed the car as they approached a small cafe tucked between two brownstones. Lily recognized it immediately. It was her mother's favorite place. And there, sitting by the window, was Eleanor Montgomery. Lily felt her stomach tighten. Her mother looked calm, sipping her coffee as if the world hadn't just been turned upside down. Matthew parked the car and turned to Lily. "You ready for this?" Lily exhaled. "Not even a little." Still, she opened the door and stepped out. Eleanor looked up as the bell above the door chimed. Her lips curved into a soft smile when she saw Lily, until her gaze shifted to Matthew, and her entire expression changed. For a second, she looked like she had seen a ghost. Then, slowly, she set down her coffee cup. Lily watched as her mother straightened her back, schooling her expression into something unreadable. "Mom," Lily said cautiously. Eleanor's eyes never left Matthew. "Lily, what's going on?" Lily hesitated before answering. "We need to talk," Eleanor exhaled, glancing between them. Then, reluctantly, she gestured to the seats across from her. Matthew sat down first. Lily followed, feeling a strange weight pressing down on her chest. Eleanor's gaze flickered to her daughter. "Lily, I don't know what you think you've discovered, but I ran a DNA test," Matthew cut in. Eleanor's face paled slightly, but she kept her voice even. "I see." Lily clenched her fists. "So it's true, isn't it? He's my father." A long pause. Then, "Yes." The confirmation hit Lily like a punch to the gut, even though she had already known the answer. She swallowed hard. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" Eleanor looked down at her hands. her fingers tightening around the napkin on the table. "Because I was trying to protect you." Lily let out a shaky laugh. "Protect me from what?" Eleanor hesitated, glancing at Matthew before answering. "From his world." Matthew's eyes darkened. "You don't get to decide that for me." Eleanor met his gaze, something sharp in her expression. "I did what I had to do." Lily leaned forward. "You never even gave him a chance. You let me grow up thinking my father abandoned us." Eleanor exhaled, her voice softer now. "Lily, you don't understand. Back then, Matthew wasn't the man you see now. He was young, reckless, and his family—" She shook her head. "They made it very clear that I wasn't welcome in his life." Matthew stiffened. "My father," Eleanor nodded. "He came to me after you left, told me to stay away, and when I found out I was pregnant," she swallowed hard. "I knew they'd never let you be a part of her life." Matthew's hands curled into fists. He had always known his father was ruthless. But this— "He paid you off, didn't he?" he asked, his voice dangerously low. Eleanor hesitated, then gave a small nod. "I didn't take the money for myself. I used it to start over. To give Lily a life away from all of that." Matthew exhaled, running a hand through his hair. His father had stolen something from him. He had taken away the chance for Matthew to know his own daughter, and Eleanor had let him. Lily sat in silence, processing everything. Her entire life had been built on a lie. Matthew had never abandoned her. He had never even known she existed. And now, everything had changed. Eleanor reached for her hand, but Lily pulled away. "I need time," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Eleanor's face fell, but she nodded. "I understand." Matthew stood, his expression unreadable. "This isn't over," he said firmly. "I lost 24 years. I'm not losing another day." Lily looked at him, something unreadable in her gaze. For the first time, she wasn't sure what scared her more, learning the truth or what came next. The drive back to the penthouse was quiet. Too quiet. Lily sat in the passenger seat, arms crossed tightly, her mind a chaotic mess. She couldn't stop replaying her mother's words, the way she had calmly admitted to keeping the truth from her for 24 years. Every part of her wanted to be angry, to yell, to demand why. But deep down, she already knew the answer. Eleanor had been afraid. Afraid of Matthew's world. Afraid of his family. Afraid that if she let him in, he'd either be forced to walk away again, or worse, take Lily into a world she was never meant to be part of. But Eleanor had been wrong about one thing. Lily was already in Matthew's world now. She glanced at him from the corner of her eye. He hadn't spoken much since they left the cafe. His grip on the steering wheel was tight, his jaw clenched, eyes dark with something unreadable. It wasn't just about her anymore. This wasn't just about the past. It was about the war that was still unfolding. Elizabeth, Philip, the attempt on his life, the men who had come after her, and now, her mother's secret. "Are you okay?" she found herself asking. Matthew exhaled through his nose. "I will be." Lily studied him for a moment. "You didn't know, did you? About my mother? About what your father did?" His fingers curled around the wheel. "No, but I should have." Lily frowned. "What do you mean?" Matthew's grip tightened. "My father was controlling, ruthless. He ran his business like a dictatorship, and our family wasn't much different. If he thought something, or someone, would be a problem, he took care of it." He hesitated. "And I let him." Lily's stomach twisted. "You were young," she murmured. "That's not an excuse," Matthew said flatly. "I should have fought harder." Lily looked down at her hands. "Maybe, but it wouldn't have changed anything. He still would have done whatever he wanted." Matthew didn't answer, but she could see the muscle in his jaw twitch. She sighed, leaning back against the seat. "So, what now?" Matthew's gaze remained on the road. "Now, we focus on the people who still want me dead." Lily swallowed. "And what about Elizabeth?" Matthew's lips curled slightly, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, she'll get exactly what she deserves." Lily wasn't sure why, but a shiver ran down her spine. The penthouse was quiet when they arrived, but Matthew's security detail was already stationed outside, a silent confirmation that the threat hadn't gone away. Lily followed him inside, hesitating near the entrance. She still didn't know what her place was in all of this. She had spent her entire life thinking she was ordinary, just another girl trying to survive. But now, she was the daughter of a billionaire whose wife wanted him dead, and she was tangled in something far bigger than she had ever imagined. "You should get some rest," Matthew said, pulling her from her thoughts. Lily blinked. "Rest? After everything that just happened?" Matthew smirked slightly. "Believe me, I know the feeling, but you'll need your energy for what comes next." Lily folded her arms. "Which is," Matthew exhaled, "Elizabeth thinks I'm still in the dark. That means we have an advantage, for now. But she won't stop until she gets what she wants." Lily frowned. "And what exactly does she want?" Matthew's gaze darkened. "Control. Of my company, my assets, everything." Lily felt a chill. "And she was willing to kill you for that." Matthew's smirk returned. But this time, it was sharp, cold. "She was willing to try." Lily shivered. "And what about Philip?" Matthew's expression hardened. "Philip is a coward. He'll betray Elizabeth the second he realizes she can't protect him." Lily hesitated. "And what if you make him realize that sooner rather than later?" Matthew's brows lifted slightly, something almost amused flickering in his gaze. "You have something in mind." Lily exhaled. "I don't know. Maybe. But if Elizabeth is smart, then she's keeping Philip close. She needs him. Which means he knows everything," Matthew finished. Lily nodded. "And if he thinks she's going down, he'll try to save himself." Matthew studied her, something unreadable in his expression. "You really are my daughter," he murmured. Lily rolled her eyes. Yeah, save the sentimentality." Matthew smirked. "Fair enough." Then he grabbed his phone. Already dialing, Lily watched as he stepped away, speaking in a low voice to someone on the other end. She couldn't hear much, but she caught one sentence. "Set up a meeting with Philip Turner. Let's see where his loyalties really are." Lily exhaled. She had no idea what was coming next, but one thing was certain. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Across the city, in a dimly lit penthouse, Elizabeth Parker stood by the window, a glass of wine in hand. Philip Turner sat on the couch behind her, his nerves visible in the way he tapped his fingers against his knee. "You think he knows?" Philip asked finally. Elizabeth smirked. "If he did, he'd be dead already." Philip exhaled, shaking his head. "I don't like this. The car was supposed to take care of him. Now he's walking around like nothing happened." Elizabeth took a sip of her wine, unfazed. "Patience, Philip. The game isn't over yet." Philip frowned. "And what about the girl?" Elizabeth's smirk faded. She had underestimated Lily once. She wouldn't do it again. "Take care of her," she said coldly. Philip hesitated. "Elizabeth?" She turned, eyes sharp. "Do I have to repeat myself?" Philip swallowed. "No, I'll handle it." Elizabeth smiled. "Good." She turned back to the window. Watching the city below, Matthew had survived the first attempt, but he wouldn't survive the next, and neither would his daughter. The morning air was crisp, but inside Matthew Parker's penthouse, the tension was suffocating. The weight of last night's revelations still clung to the room, thick and inescapable. Lily sat on the kitchen stool, absent-mindedly stirring a cup of coffee she hadn't taken a sip from. She barely slept. How could she? In the span of 24 hours, she had discovered that her entire life had been a lie. Her father was alive, and not just alive. He was Matthew Parker, a billionaire wrapped in danger and deceit. And now, his enemies were her enemies. Across the counter, Matthew scrolled through his phone, his expression unreadable. He had been up before sunrise, making calls, setting plans in motion. Lily finally broke the silence. "You're awfully quiet." Matthew looked up, arching a brow. "I'm thinking about what?" His fingers tapped against the counter. "Philip Turner," Lily exhaled. "You really think he's going to turn on Elizabeth?" A slow smirk tugged at the corner of Matthew's lips. "He will, because he's weak, and weak men always choose survival over loyalty." Lily frowned. "And what exactly are you going to do?" Matthew leaned forward slightly, his gaze sharp. "I'm going to give him a way out." Lily narrowed her eyes. "By way out, you mean?" Matthew exhaled, sitting back. "I set up a meeting. Today. Philip thinks it's just business, but I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse." Lily scoffed. "And if he refuses?" Matthew's smirk didn't falter. Then he won't be around long enough to regret it. A shiver ran down Lily's spine. She had no doubt that Matthew meant every word. Philip Turner checked his reflection in the mirror for the third time, adjusting the collar of his suit. His nerves were shot. He hadn't been able to sleep. Matthew was supposed to be dead. And yet, here he was, alive and walking around like nothing had happened. Philip had no idea how Matthew had managed to survive, but he knew one thing. Elizabeth was getting reckless, and reckless people got caught. His phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Pier 47, 2 p.m. Come alone. Philip swallowed hard. He knew exactly who it was from. Matthew. This was either his chance to fix things, or his last day breathing. Lily sat on the edge of the couch, arms crossed tightly. This is a bad idea, she said. Matthew adjusted his cufflinks, unfazed. No, it's necessary. Lily shook her head. You're walking straight into a meeting with a guy who literally tried to kill you. How do you know this isn't a setup? Matthew gave her a knowing look. Because I'm setting him up first. Lily sighed in frustration. You really think you can just convince him to betray Elizabeth? Matthew smirked. I don't need to convince him. I just need to make him believe it's his best option. Lily exhaled sharply, shaking her head. This is insane. Matthew stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. I know you don't trust me yet, Lily, and I don't blame you, but I need you to trust that I know how to handle men like Philip. Lily hesitated. She wanted to argue, but something in his eyes, something cold and calculating, told her that this wasn't the first time he had played this kind of game, and he never lost. Fine, she muttered, but I'm coming with you. Matthew exhaled through his nose. Absolutely not, Lily scoffed. You think I'm just going to sit here while you go off to some secret meeting with the guy who wants you dead? Matthew's jaw clenched. It's too dangerous. Lily crossed her arms. Yeah, welcome to my life now. Matthew studied her, as if debating whether to argue, but finally he sighed. You stay in the car, out of sight if anything goes wrong. You drive away and don't look back. Lily smirked slightly. We both know I won't do that. Matthew sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Stubborn. Just like your mother. Lily ignored the sudden warmth in her chest at the words. Let's go, she said. The air near the pier was thick with salt and tension. The city noise felt distant here, replaced by the sound of water lapping against the docks. Matthew stepped out of the car first, adjusting his jacket as he scanned the area. It was empty, exactly as he planned. Lily stayed in the car, watching from a distance. Her fingers tapped anxiously against the dashboard. A black sedan pulled up moments later. Philip Turner stepped out, looking around cautiously before walking toward Matthew. You picked an interesting place for a meeting, Philip said, forcing a smile. Matthew shrugged. I like the view. Philip's smile faltered. Why am I here, Matthew? Matthew studied him for a moment before speaking. Because we both know Elizabeth is going to burn you the second things go south. And things are going south fast. Philip stiffened. That's not. Save it. Matthew cut him off. You and I both know she doesn't care about you. She's using you. The second she thinks you're a liability, she'll throw you to the wolves. Philip swallowed. And what? You're offering me a better deal. Matthew smirked. I'm offering you survival. Philip hesitated. He was sweating now, his nervousness clear. You give me everything. Matthew continued. Emails, bank records, proof of her involvement. You walk away clean, no prison, no consequences, just a quiet exit before she takes you down with her. Philip licked his lips. And if I say no, Matthew's smirk faded, then I make sure Elizabeth knows you were thinking about it, and we both know how that ends. Philip's face paled. Lily watched from the car, holding her breath. Philip hesitated, then exhaled sharply, rubbing a hand over his face. I need time. Matthew nodded. You have 12 hours. Philip swallowed, then turned and walked away, disappearing into his car. Matthew exhaled, then walked back to the vehicle. Lily looked at him as he slid into the driver's seat. Well, Matthew smirked slightly. He'll break. Lily studied him. And if he doesn't? Matthew's expression darkened. Then we make sure he does. Lily shivered. The game was far from over, and the stakes had never been higher. Philip Turner had never been a religious man, but as he sat alone in his apartment, staring at his laptop screen, he found himself muttering silent prayers to any god who would listen. His hands were clammy, his breathing uneven. The email window in front of him glowed ominously, filled with messages, financial records, and encrypted files, all of them proof that Elizabeth Parker had orchestrated Matthew's murder attempt. He had spent years working alongside Elizabeth, believing her to be ruthless but controlled. Now he realized she was reckless, and reckless people got others killed. His phone buzzed beside him. Unknown number. Philip's heart pounded. He knew who it was before he even answered. Talk. Matthew's voice was calm, but Philip could hear the steel beneath it. Philip swallowed hard. I need more time. You're out of time. Philip rubbed a hand over his face. Look, I have everything. Emails, transaction records, offshore accounts, it's all here. Then send it, Matthew said. Philip hesitated. Once I do this, I'm dead. A long silence. Then, Matthew's voice, colder than before. You were dead the moment you went along with her plan. The only difference now is whether you go out fighting or let her pull the trigger first. Philip's stomach twisted. You think she'll really kill me? Matthew chuckled, but there was no amusement in it. She already tried to kill me. What do you think? Philip squeezed his eyes shut. He had spent years at the top, making deals, playing the game, pretending he was untouchable, but now he was just another pawn on the board. And pawns always got sacrificed first. He took a slow breath. Fine, he muttered. I'll send everything in an hour. 30 minutes, Matthew corrected. The call ended before Philip could argue. He exhaled sharply and turned back to his laptop. If he was going down, he wasn't going down alone. Lily paced the length of the penthouse, arms crossed tightly over her chest. You really think he's going to follow through? She asked. Matthew sat calmly on the couch, his phone in hand. He doesn't have a choice, Lily scoffed. Sure he does. He could run. He could tell Elizabeth you threatened him. Matthew smirked slightly. If he was going to do that, he would have done it already. Lily frowned, chewing on the inside of her cheek. And what if Elizabeth figures out he's turning on her? Matthew exhaled, setting his phone down. Then she'll try to kill him. Lily's stomach twisted. You're so casual about this. Matthew looked at her, something unreadable in his gaze. This is the world I live in, Lily. And now, like it or not, it's the world you're in too. Lily swallowed hard. She wanted to argue, to tell him that she wasn't part of this, that she could just walk away. But deep down, she knew that wasn't true. She had been dragged into this the moment she warned Matthew. And now, there was no turning back. Elizabeth Parker sat in her private office, swirling a glass of wine in one hand while staring at her phone. Philip was taking too long. She had learned to trust her instincts over the years, and right now, they were screaming at her. Something was wrong. She exhaled sharply. Tapping her manicured nails against the desk, she had underestimated Matthew. That was her first mistake. Her second mistake. Trusting Philip to keep his spine intact, she stood, dialing a number. A gruff voice answered. Yes. Elizabeth's lips curled into a smile. It's time to clean up a mess. A pause. Philip. Elizabeth sipped her wine. I think he's had a change of heart. The voice on the other end let out a low chuckle. Say no more. The line went dead. Elizabeth set her phone down and smiled. Philip had 30 minutes to live. Philip's hands were shaking as he hit send. The files uploaded. The email zipped away into cyberspace, and he exhaled, slumping back against his chair. It was done. He had just betrayed Elizabeth Parker, and now, all he could do was wait. A knock at the door made his blood run cold. He stood slowly, heart pounding. Another knock, louder this time. Mr. Turner, a voice called from the other side. Security, open up. Philip's stomach twisted. Security. He hadn't called for security. His pulse roared in his ears as he took a step back, eyes darting to the nearest exit. The knocking turned into pounding. Philip's breath came in short gasps. Then, the door burst open. 2 men in black suits stepped inside. Their faces blank, emotionless. Philip's body locked up. I don't know who sent you, but one of the men pulled out a gun. Philip's vision blurred. No. I can fix this. He stammered. "Please, I can fix this." The gun clicked. A single gunshot rang out. Blood splattered across the marble floor. Philip Turner was dead before he hit the ground. Matthew's phone vibrated. The email had arrived. He opened it, scanning through the files. Everything he needed to take Elizabeth down was right there. He exhaled sharply, victorious. Then, another message from an unknown number. "Nice try, Matthew. But I'm always one step ahead." Matthew's stomach tightened. He turned to Lily, his expression dark. "We have a problem." Lily's pulse quickened. "What happened?" Matthew clenched his jaw. Philip just became disposable. Lily's breath hitched. "You mean, he's dead?" Matthew said grimly. "And Elizabeth knows we're coming for her." Silence hung between them. Then Lily exhaled. "So, what do we do now?" Matthew's eyes darkened. "Now," his voice was low, dangerous. "Now we finish this." The penthouse was silent, but the tension inside it was deafening. Lily stood near the window, staring at the sprawling cityscape of New York, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Somewhere out there, Elizabeth Parker was watching, waiting. And now, she knew they were coming for her. Philip Turner was dead. That reality sat like a lead weight in her chest. She wasn't naive. She knew what kind of world she had stepped into when she warned Matthew about the assassination attempt. But this was real. Blood had been spilled, and they weren't even close to the end. Behind her, Matthew sat at his desk, scanning through the files Philip had sent before his execution. His expression was unreadable, but his grip on the mouse was tight, knuckles white. Lily turned to him. "So what now?" Matthew didn't look up. "Now we take her down." Lily hesitated before stepping closer. "And how exactly do we do that?" She just proved she's always one step ahead. Matthew exhaled sharply, leaning back in his chair. "Not this time." Lily raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you so sure?" He finally looked up, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. "Because she thinks I'm still playing by the rules." Lily swallowed. "And you're not." A ghost of a smirk crossed Matthew's lips. But it was cold, dangerous. "I stopped playing by the rules the moment she tried to kill me." Lily shivered. She didn't know whether to feel reassured or terrified. Matthew tapped his fingers against the desk. "Philip gave us everything we need. Elizabeth was siphoning money from my company for months, hiding it in offshore accounts, using shell corporations. But that's not the worst part." Lily frowned. "What is?" Matthew's jaw tightened. "She was planning to frame me for fraud. The moment I was dead, all the evidence would have pointed back to me. My entire legacy, everything I built, would have crumbled." Lily inhaled sharply. "She wasn't just trying to kill you, she was trying to erase you." Matthew nodded. "Exactly." A chill ran down her spine. Elizabeth Parker wasn't just greedy. She was ruthless. Lily shook her head, disbelief creeping in. "I don't get it. If she already had the money, if she already had control over everything, why go this far? Why not just divorce you and take a settlement?" Matthew's lips pressed into a thin line. "Because money was never enough for her. She didn't just want my fortune, she wanted my power, my name." Lily exhaled, shaking her head. "She's insane." Matthew smirked. "Tell me something I don't know." Lily sat down across from him, rubbing her temples. "Okay, so we have the proof. What's the plan?" Matthew leaned forward, eyes dark with determination. "We expose her, but we do it on our terms." Lily frowned. "Meaning?" Matthew's smirk deepened. "We set a trap." Lily hesitated. "What kind of trap?" Matthew's gaze flickered with something sharp, calculated. "One she can't escape." Elizabeth Parker adjusted her silk robe, sipping from a glass of red wine as she stared out the window of her penthouse. The city stretched out beneath her, glittering like a web of power and opportunity. And yet tonight, it felt different, tighter, more fragile. She had eliminated Philip. That had been necessary. He was weak, unreliable. He had hesitated, and hesitation was fatal in their world. Still, something unsettled her. Matthew was alive. She should have been celebrating his death by now. Instead, he was out there, breathing, scheming. That wasn't part of the plan. A soft chime from her phone pulled her from her thoughts. She picked it up, eyes narrowing at the message. "Meet me, we need to talk." Elizabeth arched an eyebrow. The number was blocked, but she knew exactly who it was from. Matthew. A slow smirk curled at her lips. So, he wanted to meet. Interesting. She took another sip of wine, savoring the taste before setting the glass down. Game on, darling. Lily pulled her coat tighter around herself as she stepped out of the car, glancing around the empty rooftop parking garage. "This is where you chose to meet her?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. Matthew shut the car door, straightening his sleeves. "Neutral ground, no security, no cameras," Lily scoffed. "Sounds like the perfect place to get killed." Matthew smirked. "Only if you don't know what you're doing." Lily sighed, running a hand through her hair. "Okay, so what's the actual plan?" Matthew's expression darkened. "We give her enough rope to hang herself." Lily frowned. "Meaning?" Matthew pulled out his phone. "She thinks she's meeting with me alone. What she doesn't know is that every word she says tonight will be recorded. And if we play this right, she'll incriminate herself." Lily's eyes widened slightly. "You think she's just going to admit everything?" Matthew exhaled. "Elizabeth is arrogant. She likes control. If she thinks she's winning, she won't be able to resist gloating." Lily chewed on her lip. "And if she doesn't?" Matthew's smirk returned. "Then I push her." Lily shivered. She wasn't sure what unnerved her more, the danger of this plan, or how much Matthew seemed to enjoy the game. A car pulled up at the far end of the rooftop, its headlights cutting through the darkness. Elizabeth Parker stepped out, dressed in a fitted black coat, her heels clicking against the concrete as she approached. Her smirk was as sharp as ever. "Matthew," she purred. "You look well for a dead man." Matthew tilted his head, disappointed. Elizabeth laughed lightly, feigning amusement. "Oh, darling, you should know by now. I never get disappointed. I only get even." Lily tensed, watching as the two of them faced off like opposing chess pieces. This wasn't just a conversation. This was war. Matthew slid his hands into his pockets. "We both know how this ends, Elizabeth." Elizabeth smirked. "Do we?" Matthew took a slow step forward. "You killed Philip." Her smirk didn't falter. "Oh, please. You give me too much credit." Matthew's voice turned colder. "You tried to kill me." Elizabeth's eyes darkened. "Tried." She leaned in slightly. "Darling, who said I was finished?" Silence. Then, Matthew smiled. "Gotcha," he murmured. Elizabeth frowned. Matthew tapped his phone, revealing the live recording. Lily's breath caught. Elizabeth's face paled, and just like that, the queen had fallen into the trap. For the first time in her life, Elizabeth Parker looked rattled. Her usual icy confidence flickered for just a fraction of a second, but it was enough for Matthew to catch it, enough for him to know. She realized she had made a mistake, and he was going to make her pay for it. Elizabeth's lips pressed into a thin line as she straightened her coat, eyes dark with fury. "You're bluffing," she said smoothly, but there was a slight edge to her voice now, a hesitation she hadn't intended to show. Matthew smirked. "Am I?" With deliberate ease, he lifted his phone, turning the screen so she could see it. The live recording app was still running. Lily stood a few feet behind him, watching everything unfold, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't dare breathe. Elizabeth's face hardened. "You think one recording will be enough to bring me down?" Matthew's expression didn't change. "Oh, I don't think. I know." Elizabeth scoffed, crossing her arms. "And what exactly do you plan to do with it?" Matthew tilted his head. "That depends on you," Elizabeth laughed, but it was humorless. Sharp. "Let me guess. You want me to disappear, leave with whatever money I have left and never set foot in your world again?" Matthew smirked. "You're smarter than I give you credit for." Elizabeth's eyes flashed. "And what if I say no?" Matthew stepped closer, his voice a quiet threat. "Then, in the next 12 hours, that recording goes directly to the police, along with all the files Philip sent me before you had him executed." Elizabeth flinched, her fingers tightening around her coat. "You have nothing on me," she snapped. Matthew's smirk deepened. "Would you like to test that theory?" A cold silence settled between them. Lily's stomach twisted as she watched the war unfolding in front of her. She had never seen a battle quite like this, one without weapons, without physical violence. It was something far more dangerous. Power against power, control against control. and Elizabeth Parker, for the first time, was losing. Her jaw tightened. "You always were arrogant, Matthew," she sneered. "But you forget something. I don't scare easily." Matthew exhaled slowly, as if he almost pitied her. "No, Elizabeth, you don't scare at all. That's your greatest strength." His voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "And your biggest weakness." Lily watched as something shifted in Elizabeth's eyes. For the first time, real fear. Matthew turned slightly, stepping back just enough to give her space. "You have until midnight to disappear, quietly. If you're still in New York by sunrise, you won't have anywhere left to run." Elizabeth swallowed hard. She could see it now. This wasn't just a threat. It was a death sentence. She had spent years maneuvering through power games, eliminating obstacles with precision and ruthlessness. But now, she was the one backed into a corner. For the first time, she had no escape. Her breathing steadied, her expression hardening again. "You think you've won," she murmured. Matthew's smirk never wavered. "No, Elizabeth, I know I have." Elizabeth's lips curled, but it wasn't quite a smile. It was something else, something dangerous. "Fine," she said finally, tilting her chin up. "I'll go, but don't think for a second this is over." Matthew's eyes darkened. "It is for you," Elizabeth exhaled sharply, as if forcing herself to stay composed. Then, without another word, she turned on her heel and walked back to her car. Lily watched as the taillights disappeared into the distance, the tension in the air lingering long after she was gone. A long silence stretched between them before Lily finally spoke. "That was intense." Matthew let out a slow breath, rubbing his jaw. "That's Elizabeth Parker for you." Lily hesitated. "Do you really think she'll leave?" Matthew's smirk faded. "She'll try something first. She won't go quietly." Lily exhaled sharply, crossing her arms. "Then what do we do?" Matthew turned to her, his expression unreadable. "We prepare for her next move." Lily frowned. "Which is?" Matthew glanced at his phone, scrolling through the files Philip had sent. His eyes darkened as he read something, his body going unnaturally still. Lily's stomach twisted. "What is it?" Matthew's grip tightened on the phone. "She's not going after me," he murmured. Lily's blood ran cold. Matthew lifted his gaze, his voice calm but lethal. "She's going after you." Elizabeth Parker sat in the back of her town car, her hands clenched into fists, her mind racing. Matthew had won this round, but the game wasn't over. Not yet. Her phone buzzed. She answered without hesitation. "Do it," she ordered coldly. A voice on the other end chuckled. "Consider it done." She hung up, staring out the window as the city blurred past. Matthew thought he could outmaneuver her, but he had one fatal flaw. He cared about the girl, and that was going to be his downfall. Lily's stomach twisted into knots. "She's coming after me." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but the weight of the words hit like a freight train. Matthew's grip on his phone tightened. His expression was unreadable, but she could feel the tension rolling off him in waves. "Elizabeth knows she's lost," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "And when people like her lose, they don't go down quietly. They take as many people with them as they can." Lily's pulse pounded. "So what do we do?" Matthew's eyes locked onto hers. "We don't give her the chance." The elevator ride up to the penthouse was suffocating. Lily's mind raced with 1,000 questions, none of which had clear answers. Would Elizabeth come after her directly? Would she try to scare her? Hurt her? Kill her? The thought sent ice down her spine. She had never been the target before. The doors slid open, and Matthew walked ahead, his movements calculated. The penthouse was already being secured. His security team had positioned themselves at every possible entry point. "Stay here," Matthew ordered, glancing over his shoulder. Lily scoffed. "Not happening." Matthew turned fully, jaw clenched. "This isn't a game, Lily." She crossed her arms. "Yeah, I figured that out when someone tried to kill you." Matthew exhaled through his nose, frustration flashing in his eyes. But before he could argue, his phone buzzed. "Daniel," his security chief. Matthew answered immediately. "Talk." "She's making her move." Daniel's voice was sharp, controlled. "2 cars just left her penthouse. We're tracking them now." Matthew's grip tightened. "Where are they headed?" A pause, then, "Looks like one's heading toward your building." Matthew's blood ran cold. "How long?" 10, maybe 15 minutes. Lily's breath hitched. Matthew turned to her, his eyes darker than she had ever seen them. "We're leaving now." Lily hesitated. "What? Where?" Matthew grabbed his coat. "Somewhere she can't find you." Lily took a step back. "And what about you?" Matthew didn't answer right away. He glanced at Daniel through the phone. "I need confirmation. Who's in the cars?" Another pause. Then, "One's Elizabeth's personal driver. The other, not sure yet." Matthew's jaw clenched. "Find out, and get everyone in position." "Already on it." Matthew hung up, turning back to Lily. She was watching him closely, her arms still folded, but there was something different in her eyes now. Fear, not for herself, for him. Matthew softened slightly. "Lily, no," she cut in. "You don't get to do this. You don't get to throw me in some safe house while you handle everything on your own." Matthew exhaled sharply. "It's not up for discussion." Lily shook her head. "Screw that. I didn't run when I found out Elizabeth wanted you dead. I didn't run when I saw those men outside my house. I'm not running now." Matthew stared at her for a long moment. Then, finally, he sighed. "You're impossible." Lily smirked slightly. "Runs in the family." A hint of amusement flickered in his eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Fine," Matthew muttered. "But if things go south, you follow my lead. No questions, no hesitation."